Are we recording yet?
I believe so.
All right.
I'm going to call the meeting to order at 4:01 p.m. And roll call. Tammy Della, Bruce Falcone,
Here.
Chief Asaro,
Here.
David Hume,
Yeah.
Randy Artiega is going to be via Zoom. Is he on yet?
He's not.
Okay, he's not here yet, but he will be. And Dana Parfit had something come up. She will not be attending. Do we want to mention anyone else that's going to be anybody on? I know that you said John Burt, but I don't see him yet.
Yeah, I think he's probably.
That's him here.
And
You just,
John Burt is attending.
Yeah. Yep, that's me.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. As far as the approval of the minutes, we'll hold off on those because they're getting printed as we speak.
Forgive me
Okay.
for attendance.
Oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't on the what's your name again? I'm sorry.
Joe Burrell.
Joe Burrell.
How could I forget Joe? Joe Burrell.
WRTM representative.
Yes, that's right. She just didn't have it on here. I apologize. That's my fault. Communications received by the committee. Any communications?
No, what we, not necessarily for the committee. I mean, we did post several letters on our department Facebook site for some positive feedback that we've gotten recently. Some correspondence that we've received as a result of goodwill in the community. I know Deputy Chief Gately had them posted last week.
Anything else? Old business. Potential ordinance for dirt bikes and ATVs.
So a number of months ago, the Public Safety Commission of the Committee of the Town Council had me attend along with the town manager for a proposed dirt bike ordinance. So some of the history of this is, if you'll recall, just over a year ago, in August of 2023, we had a fatal accident up Aquanic Road at Meridian Street Extension in Long Hill, rather. That resulted in the death of a young lady that was on a non-registered, non-licensed dirt bike on a town road that collided with the car at the intersection. Unfortunately, she succumbed to her injuries. There were several other dirt bikes and ATVs involved in that motor vehicle crash that left the area. None of them should have been on the road. This ordinance, as it's being considered right now by the town council, will have a public hearing, and it will eventually, if it passes, will give us a little bit more leverage when it comes to dealing with ATVs on the roadways. So that's been in the works for quite some time now, and it's coming up to the town council. Like I said, they do have a public hearing on that coming up as well.
Awesome. Do we know when that is coming up?
I have to look that up.
Tonight, we're setting the public here. Are we still talking about the ATV ordinance?
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to set the public hearing. The resolution to set the public hearings tonight. It'll be set for December 3rd. Following comments that night at the next COW, I'm hoping to get a recommendation from the council to move it forward. It'll eventually have to go to the RTM. So it's kind of a 2 to 3 month process.
Okay. Thank you, John. Okay, and then parking is the next one. Oh, sorry.
Sure.
The ordinance, chief, in a nutshell, 20 words or less. What is that going to?
It defines.
I've seen a rough draft of it.
Yeah, it's. I believe it. You can. We can certainly get a copy to you if you're interested in reading it. But it gives some fines and things of that nature. The ability to seize the vehicle. There's been a couple of incarnations of it. I socialized it with the state's attorney's office initially. It came back with some recommendations from them as far as being able to prosecute it, because the way local ordinances work in Connecticut is we have the ability to enforce them. It does give the state police actually an ability to enforce them in municipalities as well. But what it does is it's a municipal ordinance that goes to state superior court. So the prosecutors have to be the ones prosecuting it under state law. There's a provision of general statutes that allows it, but there's some fines, seizure of vehicles, things of that nature. So a little bit more. I think there's an interest in the town council to do something a little bit more than just as prescribed by state law to give a little bit more latitude. And their hope in the conversations that I've had was allow the departments greater flexibility when it comes to those types of things. So,
Any other questions? So we'll move to parking. Give me a
sorry,
moment.
I'm checking, I'm pulling up my notes here.
Okay.
So, parking, this has become an ongoing issue, particularly in the Mystic section of town. The town manager and I kind of deal with this on a regular basis. We've instituted some things recently that we hope will address this. In fact, as of earlier today, I was briefed that we've implemented this new parking software. Essentially what it is a handheld device that our officers and community service officers can go out and they can write parking tickets. It's all done on a PDA or a handheld cell phone with a printer that's attached to it. It issues the ticket right away. Officer can put it onto the windshield for someone who's a violator of local parking ordinances. And it also provides them the ability to pay it online through credit card. We've finally implemented that a couple of weeks ago. As of mid-October, our officers have issued about 40 parking tickets, primarily in downtown Mystic. I think almost in this case, almost exclusively in downtown Mystic. And of those 40 that have been issued, 18 have already been the fines paid online. And so it kind of creates a little bit better system for us, not only for issuance, but tracking of it, and also for the adjudication, because it does have the ability to adjudicate at the first level, meaning if someone says, hey, I shouldn't have got this, it was an error, they provide the substantiating information to the vendor that we use for this, it can be adjudicated right away. If they choose to plead not guilty, then we have a hearing officer who will hear the parking violation and decide whether they need to pay it or not. And it implements a couple other things that connect it to people's tax bills. So if an individual comes into Groton,
That's where you get.
yeah, and they violate this, it eventually could suspend their registration here in Connecticut. So much better system. As you probably also heard, there was a push in Stonington to consider paid parking in downtown Mystic. There was a public hearing that didn't go well. At this point, I think our efforts, and I don't speak for the town manager here, but I think we're on the same sheet of music where, we see there being maybe a long-term consideration of that, but right now what our focus is on enforcement in downtown Mystic. So that's really been a lot of what we've been focused on, trying to increase that enforcement, making sure that people don't violate those 2-hour blocks in downtown. And quite frankly, what we found through studies time and time again, it's always the same violators. It's usually the people that are parking in the prime spots in Mystic that are working in downtown Mystic. And it creates cascading effects where people can't get those spots. So they keep looking for stuff. They're driving around a lot. And I know that the town manager's tied up with other stuff as well. I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add to that, John? Oh, beautiful. Thank you.
Hear you?
Yeah, I know he was tied up with other stuff
Oh,
too.
okay.
So that's kind of can I answer any questions on parking? What I can tell you too is our parking fines are kind of low. They used to be $10 up until a few years ago. Now they're 25. Most of the communities around have upped it to about 50. We're looking at, that's one of those things that we'd like to implement in the not too distant. It has to be done by the town council though. It's not something we can just do on our own.
And where are the problem area? Like, where's the actual problem areas?
Anywhere in downtown Mystic. I mean, we do get parking violations elsewhere in town, in certain neighborhoods and some of the commercial districts along Long Hill, Pequannock Road, Groton Square. But primarily the biggest problem that we have is in downtown Mystic, Water Street, West Main, Gravel, Pearl, any of you name it, any downtown, any place where there's parking, New London Road in downtown Mystic, we get violations. The ones that we're really enforcing though is where there is a restriction of 2 hours or less, and those are like Gravel, West Main, Water Street, those areas, Pearl. On a similar note, myself and the town manager are also on a state appointed committee for Mystic that's being chaired by Representative Meskers, who's out of Greenwich, but is the chairman of the um, Transportation Committee in the state legislature. So there's several of us that are involved. This is a regular discussion we're having every other week on that particular committee. So, anybody?
Any more questions? I haven't had a chance to really look at the minutes, so I know like we have mission statement on our next old business here. So I think if everyone's I mean, has anyone worked on anything? Really haven't really worked on it, and so I would table that to the next meeting.
What's
I would
that?
make
The mission
the
statement?
mission statement.
Oh, yeah, there has been some work done on
There
that.
has been.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I thought I'm sorry, I thought you were going for the minutes. If you wanted to
I
approve
apologize. No, I mean, I'm just not sure if we want to have some time to really review the minutes before we
those. Okay,
table, you know what I mean, table the minutes to like maybe at the end or something.
sure.
All right, so then mission statement.
So we do have a proposed mission statement. I'm gonna pass these around. Then deputy was kind enough to print this up.
Thank you. Okay.
I think there was a recommended change, though. I know she would talk about, I don't know if, one of the,
Yeah, one of the things that I'd like to see added to it, and it can only help us, and not so much for us, but for people who read the mission statement. It should be a blurb in there about, yeah, we've got some fairly lofty goals there to make all this happen. And I guess one of the things that we should jump on is, how are we gonna do that? And one of the recommendations I wanted to add in, and again, not so much for us, members of the committee, because we know, but for the general public who goes on to the Groton Town Police website and reads this thing and go, oh, okay, I didn't know such a thing existed. And one of the things I wanted it to say was that members of the committee should be making every attempt to attend all Groton Town Police Department sponsored functions in some town functions if it involves the police. I'd like to see that plugged in there, just to give the general public a sense of that, oh, you got these people going to all these things. That's good. We can talk with the public and talk with the citizenry and whatnot. I wrote up a little blurb. I sent it to the chief. And I'm derelict in my duties there. I probably should have sent you a copy of it too.
I have it right here. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get, Randy Ortega says he's listening to us, but
Can't see this.
I just tried to promote him.
oh, okay.
He should be in a minute.
Thank you.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Just make a note that Randy Ortega has joined us for the meeting.
So,
So basically, I thought it would be a good idea to have something like that plugged in there, and just to make sure that the folks that we're talking to out there understand what we're trying to do here
Yeah.
and how we're trying to.
do you want me to read what you posted?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, the above listed objectives will be more readily achieved with maximum attendance of Citizens Police Committee members at any and all Groton Town Police Department sponsored events to allow more interaction with the public.
Would we even have to have that in our mission statement, or just be something that we just like start to like ask to be put on, put on a email trailer when there's an event? Or just an understanding?
Again, it's not basically for us, Timmy, it's for people that read the mission statement and they're gonna see that we're actually doing something. That's my concern. And that they know that we're out there at these functions, they can come talk to us. I think I mentioned once before that I made the statement that oftentimes civilians are more apt to talk to another civilian before they talk to a uniform about some things. And perhaps we can help,
Yeah.
guide them in the right direction, or say, hey, that's a good idea, maybe we should bring that up at the next meeting. Or something like that, that's all.
Any thoughts on that, chief?
Yeah, I think, so just for the record, so that people know what we're looking at here, it says the Citizen Police Committee was established in October 2021. The goal of the 7-member board is as follows: build stronger relationships between the Groton Police Department and the community, increase communication to and from the department, exchange ideas between the police and the community, and advise the police chief, town manager, town council, and public safety committee on police and community issues within the confines of any laws and policies. So your proposal would be to add, membership is encouraged.
Committee membership is encouraged to almost what I wrote previous to that.
Objectives will be more readily achieved with maximum attendance of the citizens and police committee members at any and all Groton Town PD sponsored events to allow more interaction with the public.
Like I said, my work, are you guys all, no one has, I mean, other than I know Randy's gonna have, he works full time, so. anyone that has a
I
full-time
got
job-
all. I
Oh, yeah,
understand.
no, I'm not
I'm
saying that
not
against,
saying
I'm saying
we
other
need
than
to
that,
everything, everybody has to go to everything, but as a
make an
guideline,
attempt,
I'm
we'll
sorry.
make an attempt, we'll make an
Yeah,
attempt.
yeah. Do the, to best effort to attend.
I think it'd be important that we all know about all those things, because
Yeah,
I
that's a whole
kind of
other
found out about,
Yeah, that's a whole.
I
nother
watched the
subject.
meetings, and then I found out they had an event.
Yeah.
When I watched town council.
Yeah.
So.
Committee members are charged with interacting with the public whenever feasible. Through attendance. Like my handwriting there.
Yeah, it's-
The only person in this room that can read is the deputy chief.
I'm listening to you, I'm not looking at you reading.
For
You're right.
attendance at sponsored events. I can send this out if you wanna. Committee members are charged with, and I think it takes what you're saying and incorporates, committee members are charged with interacting with the public whenever feasible through attendance at special events and at sponsored events and public forums that encourage interaction and dialogue.
Perfect.
I'd say I would make a motion to accept that to be added to our mission statement.
Second emotion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Attorney Ortega, sorry, Randall Ortega. Can you hear us?
I think he's muted.
Yeah, can you unmute yourself or have him unmuted?
Keys.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there he is.
Oh, we can hear you now.
Okay. I apologize.
That's okay.
Not great with technology.
Did you hear the conversation that we just had regarding the mission statement?
Yes, yes, I think it's a great idea. I have no objections.
Okay, and you were in favor of it?
Yes,
Okay, so all in favor, so that passes, and then we'll just add that and maybe adopt it in the next, put it onto the next meeting for actual adoption once it's done, or can we just adopt it now?
I think we can adopt it now.
Okay,
I have it on the website by noon tomorrow.
okay,
So we're fortunate that Officer Banks manages our website, so
then I'll make a motion to adopt the mission statement with the added
Everybody.
I
motion.
know.
Anyone second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
aye.
I,
Thank you.
If I can just get a typed version of that, I'll have it updated.
Awesome. Thank you. Not a
You're
written
welcome.
version, a
Read
typed
your
version.
chicken scratch. Gonna have to get Pepe to decipher.
And that probably, I don't know if this is going to have, looking at the rest of this. If that goes hand in hand, because if we do attend some of these functions, I know you had mentioned about having some kind of something to identify ourselves when we're there. You had mentioned it. Okay. So.
Ask and you shall
I'm
receive.
assuming that's probably what it is, if they would like that.
I think it's important.
Yeah, that's fine. So
I'm,
bring ideas to the
I
table, right?
remember the gas committee. I haven't
I
been to
wish
very
it kind of
many
looked a little bit
meetings,
more
and I
like a
think I'm gonna start
police
going.
badge, but
One of those-
very nice, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Joe, I don't have, I didn't. Well, I'll have to call town hall and have them make one up.
That's a,
Oh, I'm not Randall.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Wrong one. And I have them here for, Randall Ortega and
Okay.
Dana Parfit. So we'll hold on to those for now.
Sounds good. I'm sorry, Joe, you've been left out. I'm so
We'll,
sorry.
we'll get you one.
So going to new business, accreditation manager, Officer Bates.
All right, I have what is, was ordered to be, and is a very short presentation on accreditation and my role here within the police department. I appreciate you guys inviting me to discuss this with you.
Thank you.
I'm Officer Banks. I've been in this role since early spring, but I've been a part of the accreditation within the department for better part of the last 2 years. So probably something I'm extremely well versed in. So any questions that come up along the way, don't hesitate to ask me. I'm probably best to get an answer for you. So some brief history. We've been We've been kind of on this path since 2017, self-initiated. This was before, obviously before I got involved in the process. The deputy and the chief made a mission and endeavor for this agency to become accredited. And that process really began around 2017 when the deputy started working on revising all of our policies, which the policy aspect of accreditation is probably one of the larger lifts of this entire thing. We want to make sure our policies are up to date. I'll get that a little bit in a second. But it became mandatory by state law via the Police Accountability Bill in end of 2020. I'm not sure exactly when that was signed, but they said as part of that bill, every department in the state of Connecticut will become accredited in some fashion. We achieved post accreditation in 2023, Tier 1. We achieved CALIA accreditation LE1 in 2024. We achieved our Tier 2 post accreditation in 2024. And right now we're working on advancing to our CALIA advanced accreditation.
so the difference between post tier 1 and post tier 2, what's the delay? Are we gonna see that here?
That's what we're gonna see right now.
Okay.
Got it.
So POST is the Police Officer Standards and Training Council. They've been, I'm not sure exactly when they started doing accreditation. It's been some time, but it's always been a voluntary process, much like CALIA is. I can see from my experience in working through both, they're similar, but we're not really talking about two entities that are in the same league as far as accreditation goes.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So POST modeled their standards, and I'll get into what a standard is, how it relates to policy and all that in a second. But they modeled their standards after the original CALIA standards, which date back to the early 80s or mid 80s. Prior to 2023, even though the Police Accountability Bill became mandatory in 2020, they gave agencies until 2023 to achieve their Tier 1 accreditation. And it's layered out over several years. So Tier 1 was in 2023. We just did our Tier 2. Next year, we're going to do Tier 3. It's kind of spoon feeding all the agencies in Connecticut because not a lot of them had the foresight that we did in 2017 to start getting our policies in order. This kind of got jumped on a lot of agencies that, kind of like us 10 years ago, had a policy manual that had been last updated before I was 1999. So you can understand that there's probably a lot of obsolete language, not only to the practices of the department itself, but to state law. to modern policing and best standards of policing in this new age. All right. And then there's currently no proof requirement for posts. So CALEA, they say we have the standard. You have to have policies that meet the standard. And we want to see that you do what you say that you're going to do. Currently with posts, there's just show us your policies. Show us that you say you do these things and how we present the standard. For CALEA, they're considered the gold standard of law enforcement. They have, as far as the amount of minds and people that are involved in shaping what the standard is and what they think they believe and put forth as being the most modern version of policing compared to posts, where we had a hiatus for about 3-4 months where they just didn't have anybody to actually facilitate the accreditation process, and they actually put it on pause. For post, I assess other agencies like the deputy. They kind of look for volunteers for us to assess other agencies where CALEA has paid staff that their profession is doing exactly this, as opposed to me taking a couple hours out of my day for a week or two to look at, Danbury Police Department's accreditation. So what's the purpose of accreditation? Enhance professionalism, improve accountability, risk management, performance improvement, enhance public confidence. That's our goals with any sort of accreditation. I believe that this is best provided through CALEA just because it just means a bit more. There's a bit more behind CALEA versus post, where you can get through accreditation through post just because you have to do it. But if you have the actual spirit of accreditation where you're trying to be the best version of policing, CALEA is actually really the best driver for that. And it really comes down to these purposes. So the process, I'm going to break all these down and kind of show you what it actually looks like live. But it all starts with the standard. The Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, CALEA, their body will say this standard relating to, let's say, body-worn cameras. Every officer should have one. This is when they should be turned on. This is when they should be turned off. And it models state law, but not every state has a law like ours regarding body-worn cameras. Or it might say, this is when I have to wear my bulletproof vest and when I should wear it, when I don't have to wear it, high-risk situations, who pays for it, all those types of things. They set forth the standard. We write the policy on it, right? They give some bolded language. The policy needs to incorporate X, Y, and Z. We establish it, and then it's under constant revision. Deputy Chief Gately and I, we go back and forth every single day on revising policies that have been written since 2017, 2018, because it's a constantly evolving process. We don't want to just be stuck in the way that we were always doing things. We want to look for, how do we actually do it within the police department? Did our procedures change a little bit? Did state law change? Did the standard change? We're constantly looking to update our policies. And then proof of compliance. And a proof is basically, we're going to prove to you that we do what we say that we do. So one thing to have a policy, right, that says we do X, Y, and Z. We keep these here under a locked cabinet. Well, do you actually, right? Lots of analysis and then assessment. I'll go through all those. So standard, for CALEA Advanced, there's approximately 406 standards, and they're not all that simple. So I'll show you, I'm going to kind of go through each kind of part of that process with the recruitment plan standard. So this is the world that I live in every day. This is the standard on a recruitment plan. So they say that the agency, that's us, has a recruitment plan for full-time sworn personnel, outlining the steps to achieve the goals of an ethnic, racial, and gender workforce composition in approximate proportion to the available workforce in the agency service community to include the following. You have to have a statement of objectives, plan of action designed to achieve the objectives identified in bullet A, and identify employees inside or outside the agency responsible for the plan administration. We have to hit those three things in our policy. All right, we have to address them. You'll notice that it's not very verbose. It doesn't tell you what the statement of objectives has to be, right? That's where we get to be creative and say, we know the town of Groton, we know the makeup of our community, we know the makeup of our officers, and this is what our objectives are going to be, right? They don't dictate that to us. We get to say, but we do have to have a statement of objectives. They don't tell us what our plan needs to be, which is good because we're a unique community. We're not New London. We're not Stonington. We are our own unique place, right? So we have to come up with what is our plan of action, and then identifying the employees inside or outside the agency were responsible for plan administration. Again, they don't say that the certain sergeant, that's got to be the guy that has to do it, right? We get to say that this is who's going to be doing it. And then the commentary, that's non-binding information. That's information that is helpful for us to kind of understand and digest the standard a little bit. They might give some suggestions in there how to accomplish certain things, but that is not binding information. Policy, standards, state and federal law, and internal processes guide policy. So as I kind of just described, the standard kind of gives a groundwork or a framework of what needs to be included in the policy, but that's not the only thing that we're going to include when we write our policies. We need to account for state and federal law. For something like recruitment, it might be EEOP, right? That's going to be that's a law that we have to abide by in terms of our recruitment and selection. And then our internal processes, again, going back to how do we do things? We have to make sure that we're abiding by state and federal law. We have to make sure that we're abiding by the standard, but how do we actually want to say that we accomplish those objectives? All right, so going back to that same standard, this is the next thing I need to do, all right? I need to make sure that our policy matches. So this is our policy uploaded into this program. It's a little small to read, but we have a statement of our objectives. This is something that the deputy had created. This is going to be what our objectives are. All right, so I need to highlight that for the CLIA assessors to show that we have a statement of the objectives. This is our plan of action. This is all part of our policy. Highlighting for the assessors when they're going to be coming later this spring to see that we do this. Plan administration, employee's role, talking about who's responsible for its administration. This is how we describe that. And a little further in the section here. All right, so first thing is the standard, and then now I have to make sure that our policy fits the standard, and then demonstrate that by highlighting it for the CLIA assessors and post assessors as well. And then proof of compliance. This is where I probably spend the majority of my time. 406 standards are all kind of bulleted like that. Some of them are A through Z, those little bullet points there. I have to show that we're doing these things, right? We can't just say that we do. They want to actually see proof in the pudding. And things that I do, I'll show body cam video, I'll show officers' reports, I'll go out in the field, I'll take pictures of people doing certain things, analyses, reports from the chief and the deputy, budgetary items. There's the list is ever growing of what I can show that accurately demonstrates these sort of things. So in this case, just to kind of give you a flow of the whole thing, this is what I've uploaded for proofs of compliance to hit all of these objectives. So last year, that's not a good one. I'll show you this year. So let's see. Good. This is our recruitment plan that the recruitment team developed. So the statement of objectives, it's in the policy, but this is what we came up with for this year, right? This was signed off on the chief 6 months ago that we came up with because we wanted to internalize how are we actually going to do these things. Plan of action. This is what we're saying we're going to do. We're going to highlight the department strengths and attract potential police officer candidates, reactivate the department's Instagram account, which we accomplished about 3-4 months ago. It was kind of dormant for a while. We weren't utilizing that tool for recruitment, so we got that going again. And launch an enhanced department website. This is all preceding both of those things. So maybe about 3 months ago, we launched the new department website, which the old one really didn't, it was really clunky in terms of how do I apply? What are the benefits of working for the town of Groton? These are some of the objectives that we laid out. And then identification. So for the fiscal year 2025 recruitment plan, the recruitment team composed of Lieutenant Minor, Sergeant Sawyer, Sergeant Quarterweg, Officer McClellan, Officer Afifi, and myself. So it identifies who does these things. And then some other proofs for these types of things. Recruitment event. This is a social media post. This kind of talks about refers to our objectives. Person's responsible. Gives a phone number for Sergeant Sawyer, who's part of the team that we identified above. to kind of see like in a very, maybe like a simple one, right? I would consider this one to be pretty simple. We abided by the standard by our policy, and then we showed that we did what we said we were going to do. Any questions so far? Excellent. Analysis. We've learned, Deputy and I, that especially over the past 6 months or so, as we proceed to advanced accreditation, there's a lot of analysis, workload analysis, grievances, you name any sort of process that goes on in the department, we're evaluating it, not just kind of guessing. I just recently completed a draft that I forwarded to the chief, crime analysis, something that we had to do for this. And while I didn't really, just based on my years of experience working for the town, I didn't really have to take a good guess at where certain crimes occurred. There were some kind of surprises that came along the way that now is actually useful information that we can put out to the rank and file to say, hey, these types of crimes go on here, right? Accreditation was kind of the impetus for us doing some of these things that maybe we weren't doing to the level of detail that might not have thought of without it. So an example of that, kind of just sticking on the theme of recruitment, is the analysis that we did. I don't have it on here. This is just a proof that it was forwarded to the chief. Let's see. There it is. So I looked at the previous year. How many applicants came in? Where are they coming from? We learned a lot through that. We use 2 different tests right now to attract applicants. We use the CPCA and we use the LEC. We found out that we weren't really getting a lot of applicants from the LEC currently, and we should put a little bit more effort into the CPCA. That's not really something that we really had data or try to derive data from, but by being kind of forced to do this analysis, we learned a lot about what was working and what's not working to drive our efforts of the future for recruitment, which is a huge task right now. Recruitment in law enforcement isn't like it was 4 or 5 years ago, where all these departments are fighting for the best candidates, and having a really understanding of what's working and what's not is extremely important for us to do that.
What do you think your biggest change has been in your recruitment? Like to try, like allowing people that don't have like degrees, or like what is the biggest change do you think that's?
So we haven't changed our standard, and Chief, you can speak to that, and that's something that I'm proud of as in this agency to work for, in the fact that just because there hasn't been a lot of applicants coming in like there was in years past, I mean, the 3 of us can attest, even when I got hired in 2009, I went and took the written LEC test at the Groton City Municipal building. I was one of probably 50 or 75 people taking that test, and that was 50 to 75 people for Southeastern Connecticut. There was probably 5 jobs open, highly competitive. And now we're kind of seeing the flip side, where as part of our recruitment plan, I'll go up to the LEC the day that they offer a test, and I'll showcase our department. And unfortunately, I'm seeing 3, 4, 5 people coming in taking the test for the month. And that would probably encourage somebody like the chief to lower our standards, to say, we're going to take somebody that maybe 5 years ago we wouldn't have taken. I think, and I'll kind of let you kind of take over from that.
Yeah, we're in a very competitive environment when it comes to recruiting and hiring police officers. Every department is short. You know, there's we were at one point in the not too distant future, past rather, within the year, we were fully staffed. We're not that way anymore. There's been some attrition. We've had retirements. We've got another retirement coming up, so we do have vacancies. But to the point that Officer Banks is making, we're not looking to lower the standards. So in a way, we're making it more difficult for ourselves, in that those standards aren't changing for us. All the same recruitment criteria has to be met. You have to take a written exam. You have to take an oral board. You have to pass a physical agility. All those things get people into the door to do an interview panel with members of the department. They'll sit in an interview. They'll ask questions that are, to kind of gauge how that person thinks. And if they pass high enough on that, they'll come and sit down with me and the deputy chief when we interview them. Then they have to pass polygraph, and they have to pass a psychological and background investigation, physical. And if they make it through all that, they get hired. So it is, we're in a time in law enforcement where some departments have chosen to maybe loosen those standards. And I just think it's a poor decision. I'd rather have less people of higher caliber than more people that are going to cause increases in litigation, increases in bad investigations and risk. Our standards remain the same, but it does put us at a little bit of a disadvantage because we're competing with every other department throughout Connecticut for the best candidates. So it can be a challenge, but I will tell you this: those that we have hired have been impressed with this very thing, this recruiting plan, and the people that have implemented it. They've gone out and been active in talking to potential new hires to go out and meet with them and shepherd them through the whole process. And I'll talk about it later, but we've got 4 people in the academy that each one of them told me that that's why they wanted to come to this department, because of that experience.
Just the second part of that, is that affect CALIA at all, like your accreditation? Like if you're constantly at a, shortage, does that hurt you guys at all for that?
No, not necessarily. I mean, as long as we're achieving the standards in here, they don't look and say, okay, what is your authorized strength? What are you at right now? Oh, you don't hit that. You're not 100%. Every department ebbs and flows throughout the United States. You look at NYPD, there are thousands and thousands of people below. State police is below, hundreds behind. Yeah. So no, it doesn't necessarily affect that, but it may affect how you are able to achieve that by having less people.
And I think to that point, we wouldn't get dinged, so to speak, on being short X amount of officers, or the representation of our sworn personnel being maybe a little bit out of sync with the demographics of the town. But what they would say is, you really haven't shown anything that you've done to try to correct that. Where we can say to the best of our abilities, yes, we're a few people short, and it's not the case, but maybe our demographics are a little bit off, but we're reaching out to these people, we're attending these events, we're speaking to these people, we're doing everything in our power to try to get ourselves fully staffed and represent the community as best as possible. That's where the assessors in CALIA would say, hey, we see you're a little bit short, but you're doing all the things to help correct the problem. And that's really the spirit of accreditation, is not being perfect, but having the mechanisms in place to try to strive for it. That makes sense.
Yeah, and if I may, one other point, government work, we don't have the ability to go over that minimum staff. That if we've got, right now we have 71 authorized sworn positions in the department. We don't have the ability to say, all right, we expect to lose 2 or 3 people this year, so we're going to go to 73, 74. It's not like football where you have the practice squad. If somebody gets injured on the regular team, you pull somebody off the practice squad and they're on the roster. We don't have that ability. So when we lose people, it does take time, not just to hire them, but to get the full results of that new hire. Meaning, we bring somebody in the door today, they have no police experience. We can't just say, okay, there's a patrol car out there, we're going to get you a uniform, go out there and go to work. They're going to go to 6 to 8 months of the academy, then they're going to go to 3 or 4 months of FTO. So the better part of a year it takes for a new hire to get in. And if you count the time that he's talking about here with recruitment, it can take over a year by the time we identify that person as being a new hire, before we get them on board, send them off to the academy and do that other stuff. It does take a while.
We did do that, because I think that's important to know that a year is probably the standard amount of.
And it holds true for our dispatchers too. It's about just under a year for a person to walk in off the streets to get trained and fully trained as a dispatcher as well.
Do you fill the legal open spots with overtime?
Yeah, and that's that's that way it always works. It's the less people, more overtime, because you're filling those positions and you're filling it at a higher rate. You're not paying 100% of their salary, you're paying 150% of the salary, because it's time and a half. So yeah, it always, that's kind of where and this from our discussions on the RTM. I always tell people we're never going to zero out overtime. It's never going to happen. There's a cost of doing business. And if you walked in earlier, you would have heard a bunch of banging going on, and it was people that are downstairs doing their annual weapons qualification downstairs. When those people are doing that, somebody else has to be working on patrol. So that they're probably either coming in from the midnight shift on an overtime rate, or someone's backfilling them on overtime. So yeah, there's always going to be that higher overtime when there's less people.
Assessment. I'll speak mostly to CLIA, because I think that just based on some of the lapses with post, the assessment process hasn't really been what it should be. Annually, we have a remote-based assessment. So what you were just seeing, that screen, that Power DMS screen where I have the standard and the policy and all that, we give representatives, usually two, access to that platform. They get to see everything that I've done, all the work that I've put in, which is really just representative of all the work that this agency does. And over the course of the week, they review every single one. They review our policy to make sure that it's in accordance with the standard, and they review my proofs or our proofs as an agency. It's probably one of the more stressful, going through it last year. It's probably one of the more stressful weeks of my career, where they get access to it on Friday, and by Sunday night, at least in our case, this first time, because it was our first time going through it, we're pretty unfamiliar with the process. What's a good proof? Little nuances. We had a laundry list of things that we had a week to fix. Source a better proof for this. Make this tweak to your policy. But that's a good thing. We have somebody else that's looking out to make sure that we have the gold standard of law enforcement, the best policies, the best practices, and also is a great learning opportunity for me now being in this role. I fully understand the nuances of this and what they're going to be looking for, to preemptively kind of hound the deputy with emails every couple hours saying, we need to change this, we need to update this, we need to tweak this policy. Sorry, I did this. You need to do X, Y, and Z going forward. And then initially we had this in December of this past year. And quite frankly, there'll be an on-site assessment where a representative from CLIA comes, and I think he was here the first time for 3 days. Going forward, I believe it'll be 4. They conduct interviews with, you were one, right?
Yeah.
You had an interview with the assessor. They do interviews with what they call areas of interest. We get to pick, but we have to rotate through every assessment period where they want to maybe talk to who's responsible for training, who's responsible for use and force investigations, CID, things like that. And they want to know, how are your processes more through an interview style being affected by accreditation? They want to know what's actually going on in this department. They might look at some things. They might look through records a little bit and just kind of take a peer behind the curtain to, okay, it's one thing that I show 1 or 2 examples of us doing something correctly, but is it actually being done in real time when operations are, kind of progressing as normal? And that's a pretty stressful time as well. But all in all, it's a pretty robust process to make sure that we're embodying the spirit of accreditation and not just kind of pencil whipping this and saying, yeah, we do it, and kind of getting through the process. And then probably the biggest question is, what's the payoff? What's the benefit to all of this, right? We're doing a lot of work. I'm in this position now. It's a lot of time spent, a lot of effort spent. So what do we get out of it? Reduce risk and liability exposure. It's pretty intuitive to think, right? If you are a lawyer representing somebody in the community that maybe has a gripe with this agency, are you going to be more or less willing to go after them if you know that their policies are top notch? If you know that they've been proving to a outside body that not only do their policies match, but consistently their practices match what they say that they're going to do, right? Compared to an agency like maybe we were 10 years ago, where our policy manual was way outdated. Our procedures didn't match even what that policy said then. They don't match what we say we're going to do now. There's a lot of conflicting ideas of how we do things, where we're kind of in lockstep now as a police department. Increased community trust kind of goes right back to the same reason that somebody would be maybe less apt to sue us. We're not only are we abiding by state law, we're showing people that we are. We have the most up-to-date policies, and we're abiding by them, right? We don't have a group of cops out there that don't know what the policies are, because I can ensure that they do, and are consistently practicing what is written on paper. Greater internal accountability, kind of same vein. Everybody knows what's expected of them. It's very organized in the way that we put our policies out. We have to just took the test today. Annually, we revisit our pursuit policy. We have to review the policy, even if there's no changes to it annually, and we take a little test on it, right? So that ensures that everybody, all the officers that are on patrol, have a clear instructions on when they can pursue a car, when they can't, when they have to terminate, all those types of things. So we have greater internal accountability through that. And then grant funding opportunities. Grants are really difficult to come by sometimes. There's a lot of money out there to be had. And when a federal entity is willing to maybe give $100,000 for an agency to accomplish some sort of objective, they're going to probably be more apt to do so when it's an agency that has their kind of their ducks in a row and have proven to somebody else that they've done that, as opposed to maybe going to waste the money, not use it what it was intended for, and things like that. I'll open it up for questions if anybody has anything.
This is a great presentation. Like, I don't,
Oh,
how much
thank you.
does you should be really good at it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
If I could just, we've hit accreditation a couple of times in these meetings, and I thought it was important today because Officer Banks has only been in this position for a number of months now, but it is critically important, and I think it's important to highlight to you and for the public to know exactly what his, thank you so much, what his job consists of, because when we went down this road, we knew it was going to be a heavy lift, and that was before police accountability. That's what his day consists of every day, is hitting all those things. I will tell you, other than my boss and the town council, I don't get homework assignments except from Officer Banks. I regularly get homework assignments. He'll send a nice friendly email and say, hey, Chief, I need to meet with you about this. I've got some sitting on my desk right now about the strategic plan, about the recruitment was one of them. There's a couple others. What one was I working on recently? Oh, succession plan. So 5 years out in the future, we're looking at what we're going to look like 5-10 years out in the future. I have to write a plan on that to comply with CALEA. And a lot of the things that are important to hear is, all those things that we have to meet. He talked about best practices and what is a best practice, right? And I'll give you an example. When we went to our accreditation meeting back in the spring, where they determined whether we'd be accredited or not, one of those things they highlighted is the way we do use of force analysis. That was a big deal. They highlighted our community policing. They highlighted a couple other things that were sources of pride for us. So it shows that we're doing the right things, but it makes sure that we're continuing to do the right things. So I really appreciate the work, not just Officer Banks has done, but certainly Deputy Chief Gately has for a long time, and Lieutenant Miners helped out. There's been a whole host of people that have helped out in this effort along the years. But it's critically important that we have one source where this all everybody goes to. And like I said, he's given me homework assignments to make sure we stay in compliance with that. So it tells me that there's a lot of other people in the building that are getting things to do to make sure that we hit the right mark. So thanks publicly for your
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there like a little synopsis of what you, because that was very interesting to have a little synopsis of the whole process,
Mhm.
a couple pages. That would be
yeah, I think I put something out on social media, but we can certainly forward out some stuff that we've gotten from CALEA to kind of give. And the other point,
I'll talk to you about it anytime you want.
How many in the state of Connecticut right now have the CALEA?
21, or is it 21 or 26?
It's low.
Yeah.
It's definitely under
You guys
30,
made 'em.
and I don't.
Over 100 and I think there's 108 police departments in Connecticut. We're the only one in Eastern Connecticut. There's centered around Hartford, Fairfield County, a couple other smattered throughout the state.
Manic might be the closest one, but I don't know that they've committed to continuing.
Yeah.
Just because
Well, thank you for that.
it's difficult.
Great.
It's not easy. It's not. It's a lot of work.
So we'll say a small town that doesn't have a police department, constables and a resident trooper, do they piggyback on the state police?
The state police is CALEA accredited, so they fall under that.
Okay.
And so Groton Long Point got their post accreditation, but a lot of it, because a lot of their processes kind of fall on us as far as, if they have a prisoner or a detainee and they're going to be housed, really kind of relies on us being accredited and us doing what they're supposed to do, because they rely on us to do that function for them. So maybe something like that in that vein for those smaller agencies.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Okay, it looks like you have a calendar here. We need to do some adoption of the 2025 regular meeting schedule.
I get a couple more calendars if you guys need to look at them. Thank you, thanks Deputy for.
First of all, does this 4 o'clock, it works great for me, but does 4 o'clock work for everybody? Good.
Share the calendars just to look at it. So we can pull the dates. So we're required to have 4 meetings per year. That doesn't mean we can't have more, but we like to get them on, at least on the calendar for planning purposes. So I would suspect our next one would be in January.
And in the past, we've done what, the second, was it the second Monday of the month? I'm trying to remember.
Which would be the 13th, that
Pretty sure that's what it was, right?
the second or the first.
So we can either do I mean, do we want to discuss that? Like, is whether the first Monday versus it's better for anybody? The first Monday or the second Monday of the month? Huh? What is it? Anything?
Even though I retired, I work Thursday to Sunday,
Okay.
3rd shift, so.
What about you, Randall? Is there a certain Monday of the month that works best for you?
Not particularly. It really, it's week by week for me. So
Okay.
I'll just do my best to accommodate.
Okay. All right. So we had the first, obviously this is the first week, but do you think the second is?
Second's fine with me.
Okay.
For some reason, I think there's conflicts on the first.
Yeah, I feel like that there was at one point, so I don't know why it's just in me. So, okay, so let's go with January 13th. We'll be doing 4 p.m. going forward.
I know sometimes it's tough when we get into vacation season, like May, June,
Yeah.
like June, July. So I think that's maybe why we have pushed some of these meetings out. I know we did the last one in August, which was to coincide with our National Night Out. Do we want to try and do that again? The National Night Out?
Mhm.
Trying to think of what the National Night Out 2025 is.
If we lay out 4 meetings here, quarterly meetings,
Mhm.
correct?
Mhm.
Nothing says we can't change them if we have to,
Right.
Yeah.
so.
Or if we add one in between, it's fine with me.
August 5th is National Night Out. That's a Tuesday. And I think what we did this year is we tried to get the meeting before and then have
That'd be a
obviously
good
weather
idea.
didn't work out for us.
Yeah, so we'll just make a concession for that.
August 5th
Yep.
is a Tuesday. And then what's everyone's desire for the 4th meeting?
So we need a second meeting though, like April and May. Oh, you did April? Okay, April.
Did we say
14th.
April 14th?
Okay.
Does that work?
So January 13th, April 14th, and we'll do August 5th. And I think,
Fifth?
yeah, August 5th, which is a Tuesday. That'll be different. And then the next one probably should be in November, I would say. I would say November 10th. that
The only
work?
thing is it's right before the holidays, so people may take a long weekend.
Did you want to try the October then?
Or I was gonna say November 3rd, either a week before or a week after.
It's up to you guys. I didn't know if you want to keep is it easy? Is everyone pretty open to
Oh,
like
I see what you
flipping
mean.
around on the first of because it would either be the 13th, the 10th, or the 8th of December. So, I mean, we could move it to the 3rd on November just so it's not hitting too close to. Does that work out with everybody?
Yeah.
November 3rd, okay. Work better for me too.
November 3rd?
Yeah, November 3rd, even though it's the first one, does that work out?
That's fine.
Okay.
A number of things could happen between
Yeah.
now and then, but.
Yeah,
like I
just giving
said,
us some kind of a
nothing
base.
says we can't move it.
Let me just make sure there's nothing on here that conflicts.
Meeting will be quiet.
What?
Election day is the 4th, so it would be like this year.
So. Do I get a motion to adopt the 2025 regular meeting schedule?
Make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
What about you, Randall? Are you in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, so it's unanimous. Thank you. And then for other business, department update, police academy and FTO update.
So I just listed a few things. I thought the committee might be interested in some of the stuff that's going on here in the department. I figured I could brief you on it rather quickly. Currently, we have 4 officers in the police academy. I may have explained this in the past, so forgive my redundancy, but for many years, there was really only one source of police basic training in the state of Connecticut, and that was at the Police Officer Standards and Training Council Academy, which is in Meriden. Over the years have been some satellite academies in Hartford, New Haven, Waterbury. Some of the bigger cities would occasionally host them, but it has to be under that umbrella of the Police Officer Standards and Training Council. So any academy that is conducted is done under that umbrella, and it's inspected. It's really governed by all those policies and procedures. About a year and a half ago, we started with our first academy, or now almost 2 years ago. So we've run, when I say we, I'm talking about the Eastern Region Chiefs, which is the Law Enforcement Council of Connecticut. Every police department, every police chief in Eastern Connecticut is a member of the LEC. And we've sponsored our 3rd academy class right now, and they're currently in session. And we have 4 officers in that class. And the current class consists of 12 officers from a variety of different departments in Eastern Connecticut, but 4 of those are ours. We hosted in this room firearms training. We did the bulk of the firearms training here. We got some assistance from Groton City. We used the range that's over at Groton Utilities. I could tell you that, and I'll say this, it probably sounds self-serving, but I can tell you it's true. I worked at the police academy myself as an instructor for 5 years when I was with the state police. And I think I have a pretty good handle on basic training and how it's conducted. I will tell you that the officers that we're producing out of this academy, the training they're getting, I would say is second to none in what I've seen in recent years coming out of other satellite academies. They're getting practitioners as opposed to sorry about the smoky smell. That's our furnace. So we'll be coming to the RTM looking for a CIP to fix this, by the way. We'll
Yeah, it was.
smell it. It's on the record. We've got witnesses. So, sorry, I digress there. I really mean that because they're getting practitioners, and I got to tell you, I've been impressed with the caliber of instructors, and I say that as not just a source of pride, but a source of importance, because I think the fact that we're living in a different environment today, the training I received going through the academy, and those of us who may have gone through many years ago, is a little bit different than what they're going through today. And I think these guys the folks that are training do an outstanding job. So I thought it was important to highlight that. So we've got 4 in the academy. We just had one of our more recent graduates of that academy recently get off of field training officer. That's Officer Cassandra Kelly. She just successfully completed her FTO program. Last Friday night, myself and several members of the department went to the Groton Lodge of Elks, where Officer Ryan Brower was awarded the Officer of the Year for our department. So we're pretty proud of that. As a matter of fact, after this meeting, the town council is going to be giving him a proclamation. So if you're interested in heading down the hill to the town council meeting, he'll be getting that right at the beginning of the meeting. Recently, I attended the MAD Award ceremony, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. We had 2 officers honored at that, and that was from across the state. So again, Officer Brower was awarded as one of our recipients for the MAD Award for this department, along with Officer Matt Monahan. So they were honored at a ceremony at the Mohegan Sun Casino that was attended by people from across the state. And the keynote speaker was Ronell Higgins, who's the relatively new Commissioner of Public Safety. We're about halfway through our Citizens Police Academy. So that's going on now. I think you've taught a little bit for that, haven't you?
Yes,
Okay. So we've got, when is that? Is that this week? The escalation training this week or next? So it's been going on. It's 10 Thursday nights. I think you attended it last year. So how did you like it? Good, good. Well, our intent is to continue doing this, and hopefully people from the community that have an interest in policing and want to know what we're all about, have a deeper dive in that. And I'd certainly welcome and encourage any of you that were interested. My guess is we'll probably be doing this next fall again.
How many weeks is that?
10 weeks, 10 Thursday nights. And the last thing I have here, just some recent incidents that have been happening, some things that you may have seen in the press, and there's been a lot of things going on. I just had it queued up here too. Here it is. So back in September, we had a rollover. You may remember this at Esker Point Beach. Individual driving a Kia from Maine, coming down the hill Sunday morning, 7 o'clock. One of our officers on the way in saw this vehicle operating recklessly. They were in their personal car, so they just made note of it. Another officer saw it. This car came past the police station, went down and crashed by the volleyball courts, overturning. It was unoccupied when officers arrived. It looked, we were told there was a male that fled the scene onto Marsh Road. Did a pretty extensive search. We had canines out there. We had our drone, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Eventually located a suspect out of Salem, New Hampshire, who had an extensive history of violence, who was located after he broke into a house, tried to secrete himself in the basement. One officer observed a person running between the buildings. We surrounded the house and were able to bring him out. And fortunately, he was taken without further incident, although he did sustain some pretty good injuries as a result of the crash he was in. Reason I bring this up is that was the first deployment of our drone. So back in the spring, we took ownership of a drone. I know there's a lot of questions in the public about things of that nature. What do you use it for? So the focus of this is really for critical incidents like this, where we can have an overhead view to use it in concert with our canines, which is exactly what we did. It allows us to not only track where the canines and that handler goes, but to keep, particularly if it's an armed confrontation, it will give us a little bit of an advantage of having an optic from above. And it's also key for searches, for evidence searches, and for missing person searches. Right across the street here, we have Bluff Point, Haley Farm. It is not uncommon for people to get lost in the woods out there, this would allow us to go out there. It has FLIR, which is forward-looking infrared radar. Basically, it can sense, objects at night, as well as heat sensitivities, right? I believe that has the heat signature on it as well. So it's got some robust capabilities. In order for our officers to operate that, they have to be licensed pilots. That may come as a surprise, but they actually have to have FAA credentials as a licensed pilot. And we currently have 2 officers that we've sent to get licensed. So I don't know that I would hop in a Cessna 182 with them as they're flying it around, but they've got the credentials that are required for them to operate those drones. So that was the first successful deployment we've had of it. We have a team that we're going to create more pilots within the department through some training that they can go to. But Lieutenant Lenda is currently overseeing that. Lieutenant Lenda also oversees our canine program. So I see them working closely together. Another capability that it has is it can do crime scene and accident scene photography and mapping, and create digital 3D scans of those areas. So the technology that exists today is pretty interesting. And the other one that I won't get into a lot of it, but it's an unfortunate incident that happened a couple of weeks ago on Fishtown Road. I'm sure you've all heard about it, that there was a death involved, a young man, teen that passed away. 3 others were injured as a result of that crash. Did get a lot of as it should, attention here in town. And certainly that loss to that family is significant, but it was a pretty significant event. Still currently being investigated. I've assigned it to our detective division. They're the ones working on it, along with the reconstruction team. So a lot more work to be done on that, but unfortunate incident that happened here in town. But I don't know if there's any other questions about anything going on in the department. I'd be happy to answer them.
No, I just have a statement. I mean, I think as sitting and learning from this experience, anytime I've seen stuff on social media or someone's talked about this accident in particular, I always just like say, remind them, like, let the police do their investigation and stop like spreading what you think happened and what did happen. Just let the police do their job. So,
Yeah, great point. I'll tell you, I think in this line of work, social media is our best friend and our worst enemy at the same time. And we, we in public service find ourselves responding a lot to things that are out on social media because we can't get in front of that power curve. It happens. People know a little bit of information or they have become aware of something. Yeah, and we can't beat the media. We can't beat anybody. So I will tell you, they find out about stuff right away. Yep.
Always three sides to a story, right, Chief?
Absolutely. Yep.
What you think happened, what I think happened.
The truth is in between. Did I miss anything on the update there, Deputy? Anything you need to no?
did we have anything about like complaints and things like that? today?
No, I don't believe that. Usually we do that in the first meeting. We don't have the,
Oh, maybe. Okay.
You looking for an update?
Yeah, I didn't know we do that every meeting.
I can tell you this year so far, we've had 13. Last year at this time, we were at 17.
Good.
So we're running a little bit.
Complaints.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah,
a
so
little
we're
bit
down.
behind. It's hard to gauge.
Okay.
2 years ago, we had 6 for the whole year. I just couldn't. It just depends.
Yeah.
What things are going on and how people react.
any trends or anything you've seen that?
Yeah.
Any,
No, sir.
Now, does the public, like, how do you? How did the, like for the drone, that's a really good, thing for us to know, because like, if we do see something out and about, or the community sees this drone going around, it's,
yeah, they won't see it. Well, I shouldn't say they won't see it. They won't see it unless there's a critical incident because we can't just arbitrarily fly it. It has to
Okay.
be, unless they're doing it for training. And given the proximity to the Groton and London Airport, we have to have it cleared. There's a ceiling. They will have to give authorization for that to go
Oh,
up. So we have to contact them before it goes out.
makes sense.
And like I said, Lieutenant Linda is doing a great job putting this stuff together. I will tell you, one of the key mistakes we made when we fielded this thing is since the department bought it, we entered into negotiations with the company and somehow my email got attached to it. So every time we do training or anything where he needs to do something with that drone, create an update. Last weekend, whatever night it was, he kept texting me, "Hey Chief, can you check your email to send me the password so I can get into this?" So my, lesson learned is, identify the person that's going to be in charge of that before you do it so that they can get all the emails and you don't have to encumber their efforts to get updates and file flight plans and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's still a work in progress too. In fact, they've gotten some direction as far as putting together some protocols for us to field this, but
No,
it's
like, for
available.
example, like really quick before we adjourn, sometimes they would use like a helicopter, right?
Mhm.
For that kind of thing. Will this actually replace a helicopter and save some money, or would it be in addition to?
Do we know anything about that, Deputy Chief?
You know, a little bit? Okay.
Uh, Yes, so back in my information's a bit dated, but I think fuel costs alone were about $800 an hour to put up Bell 407, right? Which would have been an aircraft. But yeah, and quite frankly, this will be used a lot more. It's there. It's easily deployable by our personnel. We don't have to wait for, making a call to a bunch of different entities.
Awesome.
And it's available for partner agencies. I should have highlighted this too, but there was a missing person case in Groton City. Our drone unit went out for that a couple of weeks ago to assist in doing some searches as well. So it's there, it's available. We should share, we will share and be collaborative with other agencies that have a need. If we can get it out there and get it fielded for some critical incident or investigation or missing person, we'll certainly do that.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah, great tool.
Okay. What time do you have?
I have 17:15. That's 4:15 for you,
Yeah.
civilian types.
Anyone make a motion to?
What did I say? 4. Oh, it's that hour change. Yeah, 17:54. Yeah. I've been all out of whack the last day.
It's terrible.
I know it.
Anyone make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Second? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
All right.
And it's 5:16
5:16 now.
The drone pilot.
And you said,
You have
what
one,
time
right?
is the meeting over there?
Yeah, I got my drone, I also have a pilot license.
Well, see, I should have had you brief that.
I flew a plane.
I can fly a plane for the department.
Really?
The guy that hit my dad's house gave me lessons.